Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My mom is demanding I love my stepsister even though she's a brat. After that, hit, run, return, refund. And after that, am I the jerk for blowing up on my fiance after he upset my daughter? Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to go to Starbucks. You leave my vanilla latte out of this. So please smash that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My mom is demanding I love my stepsister even though she's a brat. My mom married her husband when I was 12. He had a 2-year-old daughter at the time who had no mom, so my mom fell madly for her as well and considers this her kid too. I never had anything against her back then, but I won't pretend I started caring about her all that much either, or that I saw her as my sister. My mom and her husband spoil her rotten and have allowed her to become a very demanding kid. She will tell people what to do and will scream if you don't follow what she wants. This started when she was like 4 and has gotten worse in the last 4 years. She will demand someone play tea parties with her, and if they say no, screams at the top of her lungs at you. She tells you to put something on TV, and if you don't, same response with the screaming. Wants a piggyback ride and is told no, screaming also loud. At the park and wants to be the only one on the slide, screams. She's had several notes sent home from school with complaints about this. My mom and her husband even got called in at the end of this past school year to talk about how they feel she needs to mature and have this behavior nipped in the bud. I find her so annoying that I do my best to avoid her now, which is easier since I moved out. Not too long ago, my mom was asking if I would be coming home on weekends when my training starts, and I told her I probably wouldn't. She asked why, and I said because I was busy. She suggested they could come here and stay with me for a weekend. I told her not to. She asked me why. I told her I didn't want her stepdaughter in my apartment. She told me she's my little sister and misses me, and I should spend some time with her. I said nah and pointed out her behavior. She told me how wrong it was to feel that way about her, and I said I'm not the only one, and I won't be. I told her the difference is she and her husband love her, but not everyone will, and then her behavior will just keep getting doors shut in her face. As it is, she had several birthday party invites rescinded from January to May this year. My mom told me saying I don't love her is awful and that I've known her for most of her life, and she has adored me since day one. She said she was ashamed of how cold I could be to the kid. I don't think she really gets it, but maybe she's right. Am I the jerk? You are not the jerk. Your mom and stepdad are being really short-sighted. No one is going to want to be around your stepsister, and it's all their fault. Yup, stepsister's behavior is obviously horrible, but OP's mom and stepdad are the real jerks here. Not the jerk. I don't understand how people think others are horrible for genuinely not wanting to be around poorly behaved kids, or kids at all. They're raising a brat, plain and simple. If my math's right and I didn't miss something, she should be 8. By now, she should be able to accept no as an answer. If it continues, she's going to have a heck of a time in the next few years. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for the way they said this or not? Please let us know. Not at all. No one likes screaming brats. Hit, run, return, refund. I work at a fast food joint. For context, our store has 2 windows, one for collecting and the other is to hand out food. They also have 2 bright yellow poles on either side, so it's not hard to miss. At least I didn't think so. The past week or so, I've had an increase on people driving past this window into the food one. This causes issues, especially in rushes, but yesterday it caused an issue I had yet to experience. I wasn't working drive-thru, but I had a clear line of sight of the second window. I was slicing tomatoes when I hear a loud honk. I immediately drop my tomatoes and look at the window. Normally, if a customer honks, they're mad. Someone forgot something or their food was made wrong. As the manager, I have to go play peacekeeper. I make eye contact with the woman sitting there who has a deer in the headlights look and she peels away. Definitely confused. Someone doesn't honk for no reason, and I know my crew hadn't talked to her since I'd been the closest staff member anyway. I dip into the front. I'm trying to find someone to tell me what happened. All 3 of my front people are crowded around the first window. I look at them and say, what happened with that lady? As if they were waiting to present to me this glorious scene, they all immediately scuttle behind me. A hilarious sight as I'm the smallest person on staff. I don't need an explanation at this point. A truck sat in my window. The front was an absolute mess. I honestly wouldn't have trusted it to turn on myself. My crew were whispering behind me about how mad the driver was going to be. He was getting out, and I was being pushed towards him. I braced myself. He takes a second to look at it, then looks at me and chuckles. That was crazy. I relax a little bit and smile. Did she back into you? Yeah, I guess she missed the window and she didn't see me. This caused both of us to laugh. His truck is huge. It was a pickup, but lifted and definitely a bit bulkier than what I normally see. I'm not a car person, so that's the best description you'll get. Its engine was also so loud, he actually had to turn it off before he even stepped out so we could hear him talk. She was also in a little bug. There's no way she could have missed him. At this point, I switched back into manager mode. I asked him if he'd like us to speak with his insurance company. Would he like me to keep his info in case she comes back later? At least let me give you a discount. He said no to everything I offered. Honestly, I can't even tell where she hit me. This thing's had so many accidents, I only use it for work. Good thing I'm on my break. That's a relief to hear. Though he insisted on paying for all his food, I accidentally forgot his fries were smalls. Uh-oh, made that a large and they're ready in the bag. For health reasons, I can't take them back out. You enjoy. I wish this is where the story ended. Next day, I'm in the office doing manager stuff when there's a knock on my door. I look up. I've worked with my crew long enough to know when someone just met a Karen. OP, this lady up at my window. I'm already up and walking to the front. I didn't hear what the lady's issue was, but I already know it's gonna be something stupid and annoying. I look out the window and think, that woman looks familiar. Wait, I recognize that blue bug. Uh-oh. I open the window. Hey, what seems to be the issue here? I came through here yesterday. Okay. I ordered, but I never got my food. I want it now. That's strange. Do you have a receipt? No, but I paid. Side note, she definitely didn't pay. Only managers can delete orders, which I had to do when she drove away. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't help you without a receipt. But I already ordered my food yesterday, and I paid. I want it now. Did I mention I'd been here for about 8 hours straight at this point? The nice professional facade was starting to crack. Ma'am, if what you're saying is true, you would have gotten your food yesterday. Well, I didn't. Either give me my food or refund. I can't do that, ma'am. If you don't give me my food right now, I'll call your corporate office and have you fired. Oh no, how scary. I'm the only person they've found who's willing to get up early enough to open their store, so these threats don't even bother me. They do make me lose all respect for the customer though. I take a breath and put on my best grin. I look her in the eyes and say, please do. I'd love a reason to show them our security footage from yesterday. We had an accident happen and the guy wouldn't let me call the cops, but if corporate saw, they'd have no choice. I just feel so terrible that happened. Her face whitened. I continued to grin. She started to sputter and suddenly I became concerned, maintaining eye contact the whole time. Now that I mention it, the other vehicle was a blue buggy just like yours. Oh, I hope the cops don't get confused and think it was you. That would be terrible. I kept the look on my face and we stared at each other in silence until she drove away. Am I the jerk for blowing up on my fiancé after he upset my daughter? My fiancé, male 37, and I, female 35, are getting married in September and everything has been going perfect until now. My daughter, who's 16, and yes, I know I had her young, has recently found an obsession in paper origami. She started with making dollar hearts and moved on to making full-on beautiful lotus flowers and paper butterflies and asked if she could help us with the table decorations by putting paper butterflies on them with our wedding colors. I love my daughter and want to support her hobbies any way I can, so I said she can and even bought her the paper she needed with the colors. The issues lie with what happened today, and even typing this still has me feeling a little angry. My fiancé, with the addition of my daughter and I, went to check the venue and stopped at a family friend's house who's making our table decorations. My daughter expressed how she couldn't wait to put her paper butterflies on the table for the guests to enjoy. Our friend thought it was such an adorable idea, but I could tell my fiancé made a face about it. When we came back home, he expressed his concerns about what my daughter said and said that it seemed childish and that he wouldn't have it at his wedding. I reminded him that it's our wedding and that I won't exclude my daughter's wishes after I already bought her the materials. We argued for a bit more, but I had to go to my sister's to help her move. But when I came home today, my daughter came crying to me, telling me she's sorry that she's ruining my wedding with her ideas and said she'll pay me back for the paper. I asked her what she meant, and she said that my fiance told her I was only including her idea and wasn't going to really go with it. I was enraged, and when he came back home, I blew up on him and called him a jerk for what he told my daughter. He yelled back, saying that we should have found a compromise, and just making this idea without consulting him first was terrible. I do agree I should have consulted him first, but he didn't express any discomfort with the idea, and going behind my back to tell my daughter lies isn't a way to get back to me that he felt away. I feel conflicted and not sure what to do. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and run. First, I find it really upsetting that your fiancé would have any problem with this. If I were marrying into a family with a 16-year-old daughter, I would be so honored that she wanted to participate in beautifying my wedding. I would be exploding with joy. Sometimes, through no fault of anyone's, step-parents and step-kids never form any kind of loving bond. To be so enthusiastically welcomed into a family by my fiancé's daughter, I can't even properly put into words how much that would mean to me. I'm getting teary-eyed at the hypothetical. It feels to me like this can't be the reaction of a man who is happy to be taking on any kind of fatherly role. Like he'll be counting down the days until she goes to college. Second, his course of action clearly displays he will cause harm to her in order to manipulate your compliance. This is the reddest of flags. This isn't how healthy partnerships function in disagreements. Much to the contrary, it's textbook mistreatment and blackmail. The narcissism to sacrifice your daughter's emotional well-being over table settings is staggering. To get this way, he lied to your daughter. He told her that you had negative thoughts and feelings, but you did not. He told her that you lied to her because you could not tell her the truth, but you did not. And he made it appear that you complained to him about her behind her back, but you did not. He breached your trust and hers and caused her to doubt her relationship with you. What other harm might he do? And do not let your daughter think a partner can behave like this with no consequences. Yes, for this, I'd end the relationship. My kids would always be more important than relationships with other people. OP, he hurt her and he lied so that she would think you were the one who had a problem. Please imagine if your kid had not felt comfortable with you and had kept this to herself. What would that have done to your relationship with your daughter? Nothing good. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know.
Bruh, are there really people who don't like origami?
Let all the clients have the run of the place? Fine. Edit for those of you who are confused. I am co-owner, not the entire owner. I can make certain decisions and change certain things. However, it is still possible for the corporate co-owners and other independent owners, like myself, to potentially undercut the decisions of others. Keep that in mind, please, before you claim I stood by and let people destroy my business. I co-own. Basically, I work for and partially own a media company. We do everything from video and film editing, audio repair and forensics, to music production and engineering. I mostly lead the music production and engineering department, and once in a while the show, film, cinema, movie, streaming, audio engineering aspects. We of course have other owners and a board of other dependent leaders along with consultants and such. The consultants and other purely business-minded and tasked associates are for the majority absolutely useless and totally disconnect from the actual day-to-day work of the company, and often come up with terrible ideas that seem great in concept purely to them, and sometimes will attempt to force us to at least try them out. As this is ongoing, I'll share how it's been this far. In not a lot, but a few client reviews and follow-up calls from our also wonderful marketing and sales associates, some clients claimed that the environment and mood was too uptight, and the staff was too focused on productivity and didn't let us chill or relax. Being a business that is thankfully heavily booked, and with our staff always giving their all every day, of course our daily focus is first of all, safety and comfort of the staff first, and then clients, since most of the staff, including myself, are women, and we get all walk of life as clients. As a second, working to ensure the absolute highest quality of production and professional atmosphere that uses the clients and our time as best as possible, which to the sales and marketing and consultant staff must mean we are doing everything absolutely incorrectly and everything must change, and we still need to maintain our productivity and profit though. So they, sales, marketing, corporate heads, etc., not me or other department leaders, effectively told us about 2 weeks ago that we should try being a lot more lenient with clients. Not just time-wise, but allowing them to eat and drink in control rooms and live rooms. even though we have a full lunchroom, cafeteria thing with tons of food and drinks available at all times. And of course, everyone is allowed water in the control and live rooms, along with also effectively telling us that we can only ask people to not smoke in the buildings and on premises. Overall, it went as well as I thought it would. We had 3 or 4 client sessions. One went very well, and they were extremely professional, so there wasn't a single issue with time management and productivity, and the control room was clean and tidy for them coming in and as they left. 2 other clients also were generally respectful of the facilities, however, did leave the control rooms a mess with food wrappers and bottles everywhere. We had to pay our cleaning crew for more hours and more intensive work, which was a surprisingly high monetary and time cost. However, it was the last client we had under the new policy that was an absolute terror. They smoked heavily in the control room. They were drinking, running and jumping around as they were inebriated in the facilities, and damaged some treatments and lighting on the ceiling. All stuff that their deposit and incidentals on their credit cards could cover, right? Sure. The worst was yet to come, though. On the last night of their session, after we had to factor in more cleaning time and basically 2 techs to fix everything they messed up with at their own leisure, since we weren't allowed to stop them from messing with the patch bays and things in general, they smashed and spilled an entire bottle of something sugary on the mixing console, a recently restored SSL 6KG+. We are talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Effectively, they destroyed the console since the liquid caused arcing and burnt out the majority of the power supply and ruined about half the channels irreparably. That credit card they put down for incidentals? Yeah, turns out the $12,000 limit on it wasn't going to cover the tens of thousands of dollars in damage to the mixing console in the room. Of course, client disappears without paying or coming up with a payment plan, and they did not get their final products, of course. So now we have to track them down for claims while the desk and room is currently under repair. We have had wild clients before. However, our policy of being intolerant of clients messing around and potentially hurting staff, equipment, or themselves has prevented any incidents, and even some of the most wild clients we have had have understood it is a professional environment and has been extremely professional while working with us. Yes, I probably could have shut down the policy changes immediately since I completely foresaw the majority of the issues. However, I maliciously complied, as did my staff, to prove in the immediacy and the future that the marketing and sales and corporate heads should have zero say on our methodology and policy unless it truly would benefit our staff and clients. The ongoing part is now there is going to be a several-day review of the policy change so they can waste time attempting to figure out why it didn't work and how we lost time and money on it. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my last name? My mother passed before I was 10. My uncle, mother's elder brother, took me in and raised me because my father by then had already started a new life and a new family. My uncle treated me very well, though I'm not sure if my aunt feels the same about me as he did. My uncle and aunt had an only son who's around my age, and what he had, I had it too. For example, if my uncle got cousin a laptop, he would get me one too, and then they would be the same worth. My uncle even got me a car for my 18th birthday. My cousin also treated me just like his own brother. Needless to say, I'm very grateful to have them in my life. Everything I have and that I am is owed to them. However, my relationship with my uncle has hit a slight snag recently. In my culture, it's usually the parents who will help with purchasing a home for their sons when they get married. The reason is because people in my culture tend to marry young. Most of the time, we would not have worked long enough to save up enough for even the down payment. For a man not to have a marital home is considered a disadvantage, and the woman's family may not accept the proposed union. So a man having a marital home is very important. In my case, because my mother has passed and my father is an absent parent, my uncle and aunt are my de facto parents. Indeed, my uncle said he would buy me a marital home. However, he has set a condition for that. I have to change my last name to his. Last names are a big deal in my culture, so this is not something that is taken lightly. My uncle said since he's been like a father to me, rather than my own father, and also as a remembrance to my mother, I should change my last name to his, which is also my mother's. So basically, no change in last name equals no marital home. I expressed to him that this is an unfair demand because, like I said, last names are a huge deal in my culture, and a change could trigger uncomfortable questions from people. But my uncle insisted that if I refused to change my last name, I would have to buy the marital home on my own, which is impossible because I'm a fresh grad and it could take me years to even save up for the down payment. This could seriously set me back in terms of a romantic relationship and future marriage. Because of our disagreement, things between my uncle and I have become awkward. So far, my aunt and cousin have not said anything to me, but a group of close friends whom I have confided in told me I'm the jerk. I'm surprised by their reaction because other than this, I had never gone against my uncle. I'm also very thankful to my uncle and what he has done for me, and I would gladly take up the responsibility alongside my cousin to take care of him in his old age. It's just that I really don't think I should be forced into making a fundamental identity change and be punished for not doing it. Am I the jerk? So, do I understand correctly that you refuse to change your last name to your uncle's last name, which is also your mother's last name, who took care of you since you were 10 and treated you like his own son just because you're afraid of uncomfortable questions from random people? Yeah, sounds like you're the jerk. Yeah, I was expecting OP to say that it was because he didn't want to lose his mother's name, but it is the same. I appreciate that it might raise questions, but I don't think they would be terribly hard to answer. You're the jerk. I changed to my mother's name to honor her since I've never seen nor had a relationship with my father. How hard is that? And OP, you should apologize for not being okay with this sooner and tell him it's an honor to have his last name the way he stepped up for you, even if it was uncomfortable at times. You're the jerk. Change your name and be done with it. At this point, he's your dad. Seeing as your culture sets a big deal on this is the best way to honor your family. You're the jerk. He's done everything for you out of kindness, but he's not obligated to do everything for you. He's not your actual father, so he's not duty-bound to help you with your house. If you think he is duty-bound, then he is your father, and you should understand why he wants you to share his name. You can't have it both ways. Not the jerk. Nothing like some good old Reddit hypocrisy. Anytime OP is a girl who doesn't want to change her last name, all of you cheer her on and say, "No way, don't do it, red flags, you shouldn't change your name for anyone." Now that OP is a man who's being pressured into changing his last name, oh, how that tone has changed. Just do it. You're selfish for not wanting to change your name. Stop being a baby. The hypocrisy would be humorous if it wasn't such a sad reflection of how broken you all are and how your minds have been brainwashed. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not wanting to change his last name or not? Please let us know.
I couldn't stand changing my last name to Redder, but I did what I had to do so I get everything when he croaks.
What?
Nothing.
Entitled host tried to keep me from eating at a nice restaurant. So my wife, Zena, and I made reservations for a very nice restaurant that opened up in January. However, due to it being posh, new, and apparently had excellent food, me, wifey, and myself had to wait until last week in order to get a spot there. So we got a babysitter and a nurse for my granny-in-law and got all dolled up to go. We took my wife's car, and since it was brand new, she didn't want anyone but herself to drive it. So she dropped me off at the door and went to park the car. Now it's important to note that we did call earlier and confirm the reservation, so the host was there. Now I'm well dressed up, a nice suit, nice haircut, clean shaven, and nice shoes, looking like a man of culture, and not as the tradesman I normally am. At this point, I should mention that I am not fully white. I'm Irish-American on my dad's side, but more importantly, I'm also half Cuban that comes from my mom's side. While I do mostly look like my father, I have darker skin, brown eyes, and black hair like my mother's side of the family. From the way the host looked at me, I just knew this was going to be a problem. He had the face of a man that was witnessing a dog going to the bathroom on the carpet and scrunched his nose like he was smelling it. I was thinking I should wait for my wife since the reservation was under both of our names, but he spoke first. Entitled host. "Can I help you?" His tone clearly stated that he didn't even want to look at me. Me, while trying to pretend not to notice. Yes, there's a reservation under Phil and Zena, last names. Entitled host looked at the list. He was clearly not really reading it. No, I don't see your names here. Now, I experienced this sort of crap my entire life, so I try to remain as polite and professional as possible. Me. Check again. My wife called and confirmed the reservation. He checks again, shaking his head. No, there's no one here under that name. Maybe you and your wife are at the wrong restaurant? Yeah, I know arguing with this guy was going to get me nowhere, so I just wished him a good evening, turned around, and walked right outside. Zena was just about to enter the building as I was coming out. Zena, what's the matter? So I explained about this jerk inside, and she sighed. Zena, What do you want to do? Me. Well, we got the reservation and a night to ourselves. I want to try the food here, and I refuse to let that jerk get in the way of that. So you go in, confirm the reservation, and then I'll come in. I hate to say it, but it's a tactic we had to use in the past in order to get into restaurants. Edit. I should mention that my wife is white, hence why we did this. Most cases, it's just that host will give us the problems. If it's the service as a whole, we would leave and leave a poor review. Still, it's fun in a way. It's still fun to see my wifey go in, get us our table, and then me walking in to sit with her. The host looked like he had swallowed something really sour as I sat down across from my wife. I half expected him to say something, but he just turned his head away. The service was lovely, the waiter we had was polite and quick, and the food was wonderful. But every so often, the entitled host would look over at us and just frown. I saw him turn away 2 more couples that weren't up to his standards. Well, our evening was still wonderful. Despite the nasty looks we got, we still enjoyed our food. Of course, my wife called the owners and let them know what the host did and tried to do to us. She let the owners know that she will not tolerate such intolerance from a man that was turning away business. She added that such a host would eventually cause the restaurant to get a terrible reputation, and they would get into a lot of trouble over it. Well, 1 week later, I was talking to some neighbors and found out that the entitled host was no longer working there. Rumor has it that he turned away over 200 customers. Not sure if it was true or not, and he got fired over this. They hired someone that was much nicer, though Zena and I wouldn't find out until November when we go back again. Still, it's not the first time nor the last time that this will happen to me. Yet, it's still nice to see jerks like that getting what they deserve.
Never be afraid to whip out your phone and record someone who's treating you like that. No better way than exposing trash people through viral videos.
My sister's family wants to move in because I bought a huge house. I, male 31, am single and child-free. For the past few years, I've been house hunting, and during 2020 was offered to buy my great-grandmother's farmhouse. It's about an hour away, almost 80 years old, needs a lot of TLC, and comes with about 15 acres. Originally, I declined, but my grandma offered it as a steal to keep it in the family. The price was worth the land alone, and I loved the idea of restoring it, so I said yes. The house has 6 bedrooms, which sounds like a lot, but they're actually very small. The plan is to turn 4 rooms into 2 rooms and a bath. 1 room kept as the master, and the 6th room is actually the dining area that will become part of the living area. The one great thing is the kitchen is huge, and it has an outdoor extension like a mud room. I've recently started construction on the rooms and have gotten some odd reactions from my family. My mother believes I should have kept the house as is, and when I pried, she admitted she thought I'd offer to house my sister's family. My sister, female 34, has 3 kids who are 11, 9, and 3, and a deadbeat ex-husband. They divorced after her 3-year-old was born, and my sister moved in with my mom. Our parents are divorced, so dad is not a part of this. My sister's husband moved back to his family state and only sees the kids a few times a year. The child support is not much because he has a low-paying job. My mom's house is a 3-bedroom. My nieces share a room while my nephew sleeps with his mom. My sister has a job and could rent her own apartment but wants to save up money instead. My cousin's son, male 15, has started staying as well and sleeps on the couch. His family life is not all that great right now. The house is cramped, but my mother refuses to ask her to leave. They have started making passive-aggressive comments about me being single and alone in such a huge house. When I asked my sister, she also admitted that she expected to at least be offered to live with me. I told her it's an hour away from her job and school. Why would she want to? She then said that she would make the drive to work and change the kids' schools. I told her I won't have the space, and now it has become a fight. My sister got my great-grandma involved, and now my grandma told me that I should let them live with me because the house is family property. Now, even my 15-year-old cousin is asking about staying with me. My dad asks to borrow my car, then sells it. This was a long time ago. I hardly have any contact with that part of the family anymore, but I do still talk to my dad once in a while. My dad needed a car for a while, so I loaned him mine. When I went to get the car back, the back end was smashed in. My dad tells me how he was at a red light and the car was rear-ended. Of course, I asked the normal questions about fault and insurance and everything else. He tells me the other guy's insurance company sent him a check for the damages, but it wasn't enough to cover the repairs. A lie. so he didn't have the car repaired. Instead, he spent the money. My dad and I have the same first and last name, but a different middle name, so it's easy to see how he could claim the car was his and have the check written to him. When I told my dad that he should have just let me know about the accident and let me handle the claim, he said, "Why should you get anything? You weren't in an accident, I was." We had an argument about this, but none of my dad's argument was even anywhere close to being valid. He also just wasn't hearing any of what I had to say. I asked my dad to leave the car at his house for a few days and said I would arrange to have it picked up and repaired. A couple of days later, I went to his house, but I didn't see the car, so I thought he wasn't home. When I knocked, he answered. My younger brother was also there, which was surprising because he was supposed to be away at college, which I was helping pay for, but that's another story. I told my dad I was there to pick up the car. He says that was impossible because he sold it. I asked him why he did that, and he says, "You seemed so upset about the damage. I figured you'd just want me to go ahead and sell it, so you didn't have to deal with it anymore." I was making payments on the car and asked my dad how he could have sold it without the title. He told me he just had the guy fill out a lost title form or something like that. I don't even know the details on it. I told him that I thought that was going to be a problem when the guy tries to register the car and finds out that there's a lien on the car. My dad says, "That's the buyer's problem, not mine." When I asked him how much he got for it, he told me he got $3,000. Even with the damage, it was worth closer to $7,000, but definitely no less than $5,000. I asked my dad for the money. He told me he had already spent it. Then he goes into this rant about how many bills he has and how he's even paying for my brother's college. Not true. Plus, my brother was sitting right there. He had dropped out, but didn't even tell me, even though he kept cashing the checks that I sent. I had very little contact with my parents after that, and I think I only actually saw them one time since then, which was around the time I got married, but not at the wedding because they refused to go. None of this was all that surprising though. I never should have even loaned the car to my dad in the first place.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.